Hey there drone fans, Rick here again from Drone Valley. In today's video, I've got the brand new Fimi X8 SE drone, and this is the 2022 version, or a lot of people call it the V2. Now the drone arrived a couple of days ago, and I couldn't wait to tear it into the box, but then I thought to myself, why don't I wait and actually do an unboxing video just to show you everything that's included with the kit, because nothing gets me more excited than getting my hands on a brand new drone and taking it out there and flying it around to see what it can do, because I love robots. I love things that are remotely controlled, even better if that robot can fly, and even better still if the robot can take pictures and record video, and this drone is the best of all worlds, so I can't wait to tear it open and start playing with it because I love drones. I fly drones every day, and I fly all the major drones. So what Fimi's built here is a very competitive offering against DJI, Autel, Parrot, Skydio, a lot of other companies that build drones. So I love when competition comes along and says, you know what, that market's pretty mature, but we're going to build a drone to compete with you guys. And that's exactly what we have here. And the V2 has a couple of cool features built into it that I think are real innovations in the field. So I'll get into that in a little bit, but let's talk about the specifications first, because I know that's what you care about. So the drone itself weighs about 768 grams. So it's a heavy drone. Now you might think, oh, a heavy drone, that's not great. A heavy drone is great because heavier drones have a lot of ballast. So when they're up in the air and the wind starts kicking up, and it always kicks up, that drone's not going to move. It's going to stay right where you left it. So 768 grams gives it plenty of ballast up in the air. Matter of fact, it can handle a level 8 wind, which is a pretty strong wind. I wouldn't be flying in a level 8 wind, but you never quite know what the wind's like up there 200, 300 feet in the air. So knowing I can resist a level 8 wind is a really good thing. It'll fly for 35 minutes on a full charge. Now, again, you might be thinking, oh, there are drones that'll fly longer. That flight time is really kind of a, it's kind of a bragging right. It's sort of like your mileage on a car. When you look at the car and it says your average mileage, you'll never get that miles per gallon out of that car. So all the drones are using kind of squishy numbers there. For me, 35 minutes is plenty of time to have it up in the air. Even if it only flies 30 minutes, that's plenty of time to get up there, capture what I need to capture on video or take some beautiful pictures and come back and swap out the battery. It'll fly 10 kilometers. And 10 kilometers, number one, okay, that's a great metric to know that it'll fly that far away. You can't fly that far away in the US anyway because you got to keep the drone in your visual line of sight. So for me, being a little bit older, I get about, I don't know, 2,000, 2,500 feet out, and that's as far as I can see the drone. So if I fly further than that, I'm breaking the rules. So knowing I have a connection signal of 10 kilometer potential means that I've got a rock solid signal in close. I'm not going to have to worry about flying behind a tree and losing signal or flying behind a building for a second and losing signal. I'm going to have plenty of rock solid signal to connect to that drone and not worry about flyaway. So 10 kilometers is perfect. They've also built a lot of intellectual property inside of it that makes it artificially intelligent. So you can do things like track a subject. You can track a subject in 3 different ways. You can circle a subject, you can lock a position, or you can have it fly parallel to a subject. So it flies autonomously. It's got other features built in for panorama shooting and all kinds of other cool things. So in addition to it being a cool drone to fly and incredibly stable in the air, it also has the ability to become a digital cinematographer for you by hitting a couple of buttons in the application, which for new flyers, that's the golden rule, is that when you put a drone up, the first thing you worry about is it going to fly off on me? It's not going to fly off on you because you got a rock solid signal. Is it going to be stable in the air? Yeah, it's got 768 grams of weight. It's not going to get bounced around by the wind. It also has a 3-axis gimbal like all the modern drones have, so even if the drone moves a little bit in the air, it's going to keep your imaging rock solid in the frame. It's got GPS built into it as well as GLONASS and other geopositioning systems, so it always knows where it is in 3D space. It knows where you're standing, so if something happens to the drone, it's going to fly back and land, and it's going to take care of itself. If there's a problem with the battery, it's going to fly home and land. It also has the ability to do precision landing. So if you take off from a mat, it's going to look down at the mat and snap a picture of that. Remember exactly where it is based on the GPS in the picture, and it's coming back, it's going to land right on the mat. So they've built everything in that you care about as a flyer, and those automated features just make it so much better because it does all that stuff automatically for you, which is pretty cool. One other cool feature I'm going to mention, and I'll show you this when I do the closer look, is they've built in, I'm going to call it an accessory port on the bottom. And what I like about that, by the way, that's an innovation that some other drone companies have built in to their high-end drones, like the really expensive drones, where they built a port on the top where you can add things like a light or a speaker or some other devices up there, maybe a geopositioning product on the top up there. But this one has got it on the bottom. And there are 2 accessories that came out for this that you might want to look into. So you basically slide them into the bottom of the drone. They connect to the main electronics inside. And you can control them through the remote control. One of them them is a catch and release. So you can basically carry something on the bottom of it and release it down onto the ground. Now, again, the challenge there is there's some regulations about where you can do that in the US, but kind of a cool thing. In my neighborhood, we have parties every summer. Wouldn't it be a cool thing for me to fly something over to my neighbor's house before I get there for the party and drop it in the backyard? Kind of neat. And then the other one they've got is a megaphone. And a megaphone is important because if you're using this for search and rescue, you want to be able to send it out over a forest where somebody's lost and you don't know where they are. And you want to be able to say over the megaphone, don't worry, we're looking for you. Make noise so we can hear where you are. There are rescuers in the area. So you want to be able to say to those people out there in the woods that are terrified because they're lost, that people care about them and they're searching for them. So, and you can do a bunch of fun stuff with it as well. But I mean, that megaphone could be really important for search and rescue. And I'm getting way ahead of myself. So those are just some of the things that are built in. And again, when you look at it competitively, it's a reasonably, it fits right in the middle of the cost, I guess, of other drones that are out there. So kind of a cool product from that perspective. Anyway, let me get into the unboxing because I'm rambling on about the tech. I can't wait to see what this thing looks like. So it's sealed up nice and tight. I've got my beautiful little slice cutter here. Now, if you haven't seen this product, I've talked about it on the channel before. It's got a blade on it that is composite. So it's not a metal blade. Look, I'm not cutting my finger, but it cuts like nobody's business. So it's better than a regular steel blade. It won't rust on you. It'll last forever. I like the slice products a lot. All right, so enough about that. So I popped the top. Here we go. Well, it's kind of cheating because you can see what the drone looks like, but until I get it in my hands, it's not real. All right, so let me set this down. I'm going to open the top, and you can tell I'm already getting excited. Oh, boy. All right, so here's the drone. Here's the controller. Let me show you before I take it out. Hope it doesn't flip forward. So you got the drone here and you got the controller. Now, size-wise, oh man, give me a minute with this. Hold on a second. Yeah, it's got some weight to it, but man, it's built well. That bottom's got a metal structure to it. It's got some heat fins built in right there for heat dissipation. The arms obviously fold out. I like the fact that it's totally square as well. So it folds up in a nice square package. Then to extend the arms, they're non-blocking. Are they? No, they're not non-blocking. Okay, so you're going to slide the bottom ones out first. Then you're going to pull the top ones back towards you. And I always recommend when you're opening a drone with folding arms like this, don't let the arms go because I know they're spring-loaded. You can sort of let it go and it'll snap open on its own. But over time, that kinetic energy of it moving and then stopping has to go someplace. And guess where it's going to go? It's going to travel down the arm into the joint. You're going to crack that joint over time. So always guide it all the way to the end of the opening, and that way you won't cause any damage. All right, so that's what it looks like folded. I should say unfolded. And they've actually added, this is really nice. So here they've got rubber feet on the bottom of it to help some of the cushioning when it lands. And here's that accessory port I was talking about. There's a rubber cover on it right now, but if you're going to slide the megaphone in or the catch and release unit, you can slide them right in there and they immediately become recognized by the application. All right, so just a couple of observations here. Now the drone doesn't have obstacle avoidance built in. So that's one thing that I really like in a drone. It's something that sells a drone. People hear obstacle avoidance, I won't run into a tree. The honest truth is, I have obstacle avoidance on all my drones. I turn it off every time I'm flying because it can be terribly annoying. If you get close to a tree, it's going to go beep, 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 and drive you crazy. So for me, as you get to be a better pilot, for me, I don't need it on. I know I'm close to the tree. I may want to get close to a tree, and I don't want to be bugged by that annoying, beeping sound. So it doesn't have crash avoidance, but don't let that deter you. What it does have on the bottom, though, it's a couple of VIO sensors there that I'm sure help with stability when you're close to the ground. And two opticals, actually it's a light on the bottom right there. So it's got a landing light on the bottom. So it has the ability to find its way back to its home position and land. The camera on it, I didn't talk about this. It's a 1/2-inch sensor on the unit. I don't want to break the camera. I probably should wait and figure out how to take that off. But it's a 1/2-inch sensor on the camera. It'll take 4K video. It'll take 48 megapixel pictures. So what you've got here is a really nice DSLR camera up in the sky, which is going to capture some incredibly good video, and it's going to take beautiful pictures for you. And that's kind of why you're buying a camera drone in the first place, is to take those beautiful pictures. So I think the camera on this unit is going to do just fine for you. All right, so let me get a little further into it. So there's the drone. Again, mid-sized drone. There's my hand. There's the drone. It's a little bit larger than some of the micros. And instruction books, there's a lot of instruction books and guides in here. Always read through these. I know, again, I say this every time. First off, I like that they printed the manual. A lot of companies send you to a website and you have to kind of read a PDF. I love the fact that I've got a physical manual because I have idle time and I'll read through that. Definitely read the manuals because there are features in here that I can't cover in this video. And to get full value out of that product, it's going to be the manual to tell you how to do that. All right, so on the bottom here, I've got an AC cord. Standard AC cord on one end, 2-prong on the other end for the power supply. Ooh, this controller looks really cool. Now, if you've flown Fimi products before, you probably have seen controllers like this, but the controller expands. So it can handle, it's got 2 antennas on the top, and it can handle larger phones. It can handle tablets up to that size. Now, that's really innovative. A lot of other companies, the controllers all start looking the same, where they're, they've got the clamp on the bottom and a clamp on the top, and you can get a phone in there. You can't get a tablet in there without a tablet adapter. With this one, you don't need any of that nonsense. Look at that. I bet I can get an iPad mini in there without a problem. You'll also notice the 2 joysticks are over here in the holding position. These are removable, which is really nice. It's got a really good feel to it. The texture of it is not slippery. It's got a bit of a surface grooming to it. It's got a little bit of a surface feel to it, so it's not going to slide out of your hands. Joysticks fall right into your thumbs where you want them. You've got some wheels on the top up there to control a few things. Oh, I didn't mention, this has got a 3x digital zoom as well. A couple of specialty buttons on the bottom. So really nice controller, and again, an innovative design. That's unique. All right, what else we got in here? We need propellers, so hopefully there's propellers in there. Yep, there's the propellers. So there's a set of propellers for the unit, and then there's a charger right here that basically plugs into the battery. So you pull the battery out of the drone, you've got a little housing right here, the battery goes in, and that's keyed so you can't put it in backwards. Then obviously you use the AC cord here, and you're ready to go. I love the fact that it's white too. There aren't a lot of drones out there that are white. We've got a couple that are orange, a couple that are gray. Okay, some of the smaller ones are sort of an off-white, but this is a bright white. I mean, this thing up in the sky, I'm gonna probably see that further than 2,500 feet. All right, what else do we got in here? This looks interesting. What is this guy? That's the speaker. So there's the speaker. Oh, look at that. I can play around with that. That's all there is in there. Yeah, that's it. All right, so there's the speaker module. So this is what I was talking about before. It's the loudspeaker, and this slides into the bottom of the unit, and then I can go out there and I can say stuff like, hey, how you guys doing over there at the party? It'll be kind of fun to have some fun with that. So we'll have to play around with that one as well. Oh, the other thing I didn't mention was you've got a grouping of cables here that you can use between the controller and your phone. So it looks like they terminate in a full-sized USB-A for the controller, which plugs into the controller, and then the other end will obviously plug into your phone or your tablet, and you've got a USB-C for the modern stuff, you've got a Lightning for the Apple stuff, and you've got a micro USB for the older stuff. So all the cables you need are included. It's a great package. I mean, they give you everything you need to fly pretty much right out of the box, charge up the battery, register the drone because it's over 250 grams, and kind of understand what the rules are. I say this every time, and I always get grief for it, but I love the hobby. You love the hobby. So let's play by the rules. The FAA is not busting our chops. They just want you to keep it under 400 feet, keep it in visual line of sight. Don't fly over people. Don't fly near airports or NFZ zones, and you'll be just fine. But, play by those rules and you'll be fine. So anyway, charge it up, read the rules so you understand what you should be doing, and just go out there and have a lot of fun with it. Because, man, I can tell you, I've got a lot of hobbies. A lot of them kind of fell off. Over the years, you get a little older, you don't do everything you did when you were younger. This drone hobby to me gets me out of bed every day looking for a place to go fly. I just love flying drones, and I can't wait to get this one up in the air. All right, so if you stay tuned, what I'm going to do next is actually take a closer look at the drone and the controller, show you where everything plugs in, show you all the things I was talking about, including that accessory port, and that'll be it for today. Now, I will take this out for my first flight in the next couple of days. Starting to get a little cold here in Jersey, but I'm going to find a nice warm day, take it out, put it up in the air, capture some video footage with it, and I'll put a clip together talking about that. But for today, stay tuned next. And what I'll do is take a closer look at the unit and again, explain all the connections and ports so you understand how to use it once you get it home. Included with the Fimi X8 SE, you'll find a controller unit and the drone. And I'll take a closer look at both of these, but I'd like to start with the controller. So what we have here is a really unique design because your display device, your phone or your tablet, fits in right here. And this is expandable enough to accommodate a really wide phone or even a smaller tablet. And I'll show you how to do that in a minute. They also build in a really nice storage area for the 2 joysticks, and those attach very easily. You just pop them out like that and screw them onto the threads on top of the actual adjustments. And I'll pull this other one out, put that on over here. Now once you have the joysticks attached, it really gives you a nice feel with the joysticks right under your thumb. So it's really easy to maneuver the drone using this. The top of them have a bit of a ridge to it, so if you're out in the hot sunlight and your thumbs get a little bit sweaty, you're not going to slide off those joysticks. Now there are a number of controls here on the top, and I'll show you how to connect the tablet in a minute, but the first thing you'll want to do is extend the antennas, and you want to make sure that the antennas are flat, like this, and facing the drone. So you want to have a little bit of an angle to them because the reflective pattern off the antennas, number one, has to be a parallel setup in the antennas, and it's going to reflect in this direction towards your drone. So you'll always want to make sure that they're up. A lot of people make the mistake of having them pointing in like this, or maybe they've got them vertically like this, and that's a bad way to go because the reflection pattern's here. You want to make sure that they're parallel and facing your drone. So even up like this is okay. All right, as far as the controls go, you've got a button over here that'll actually return to home or general fly, so you'll want to keep in the leftmost position. If you get into trouble or you get a little bit scared and you forgot where the drone is, you can slide this over to the home position. The drone will instigate a return to home, fly back to where it took off, and actually land. This is your power button. You can tap that once to see how much of a charge you have on the controller. Currently, there are 3 out of 4 LEDs lit up. Each of these represent 25% of a charge, so 3 of them means I've got 75% of a charge left in the unit. To turn it on, you'll hold it down. You'll hit it and hold it down. Takes a second or two and that comes to life. Over here, you've got a couple of other controls. This one is a takeoff and landing button. If you hold that, the drone will actually take off and hover at a certain height, and then you can start your flight. You can also take off by holding both of the joysticks down into the center. That will spin up the actual propellers, and then you can lift off by pushing up. Above that, you have a 5-position button, and this is pretty handy because you can do a lot of different things with this. So there's an up and a down, a left and a right, and then there's a center push. So the way that works is the up position will switch between map and FPV view. If you pull down on it, you'll switch between gimbal center and gimbal down. And that one's really handy because a lot of times you're going to want to look down to see what's below you as you're coming down between the trees or trying to land. And other times you'll want to recenter the gimbal. So pulling down will switch between those 2 different views. If you switch right over here, if you push it to the right, it'll actually turn on and off the self-checking interface. So if you want to see that interface, tap it to the right like that, that display will come up, tap it again to have it disappear. And then if you pull it to the left, it'll bring up the battery instance. So it gives you the interface of what's going on with the battery to the left. And you may want to check that when you're out flying for a period of time, just to make sure the batteries are okay and you've got plenty of power left. The final position is the center position. If you push down on that, it'll bring up your media library. So you have a lot of control with this one over here, and I like the fact that I can do a bunch of different things with a single button. On the bottom of the unit, you'll find a little rubber grommet. You'll open that up and there are 2 connections inside there, a micro USB here and a full-sized USB-A there. The left one is what you charge the controller with, so you'll connect that up to a cable, to a standard USB charger and fully charge the unit. The one on the right, the full-sized USB-A, is what you'll use to connect up your display device, and I'll show you that in a minute. On the back of the unit, you'll find 2 rotary buttons right here. The left one controls the actual movement of the camera, so the gimbal up and down. This one controls ISO and a couple of other features. And then on the back of the unit, you have 2 more buttons here, and these control the recording. So if you tap the left one, it'll start and stop the recording. If you tap the right one, it'll take a picture. And again, all of these are explained in the manual. Now to add something to it as a display device, you'll need one of these connection cables. Now in my case, I use a lot of Apple products, so this one works perfectly fine for me. And what you'll do is on the bottom, you'll plug this into the USB-A connection right there, and it's already keyed, so you'll plug it in this way so the wire comes out to the right. So just plug it in like that. Then you're ready to connect this up to your display device, whether it's a phone or it's a tablet. Now I like using the iPad mini. This is a really popular tablet. I fly with this an awful lot. This has a standard USB connection on the side, which is an Apple Lightning connection. And the way you'll add this, you'll find that the cable is really short, so you might have a hard time wrestling this into the controls. The best way to do it, and you'll notice in here there's a little divot cut into the side that actually accommodates that cable. So you'll want to seat it inside there and then gently expand this until it drops in on the other side. And you can see that it fits perfectly, and that is a really nice size screen to fly with. And you can't really fit one that's much bigger than that in there, but that iPad mini is like the perfect combination between the controller and the display, and it fits in there nice and easy. There's no external tablet adapter needed. It just pops right in there and gives you a beautiful display when you're flying. Now if you stay tuned next, we'll take a look at the drone. This new version of the Fimi X8 SE has a few improvements built in that I'll explain as I go through the closer look, but I wanted to show you the drone, the accessory module, and the propellers, and I'll explain how all these work together. I wanted to start with the accessory module because I made a mistake before when I was going through the overview. I'd actually mentioned that there were 2 accessory modules, one that was a loudspeaker and another one that was a catch and release module. It's actually the same module. So this one module has a speaker in it where you can broadcast messages, as well as a catch and release mechanism right here. There's a little pin inside that pops out, and you can attach a small weighted object to that, and as you're flying you can release that using the remote controller. So I think it's great that they've got a single module that performs both functions, and it's really easy to attach to the drone. I'll show you how that works in a minute. Now you can certainly fly the drone without the accessory module, but for me, since I have it, I'll keep it attached to the drone just so I can have a little bit of fun with it when I'm out there flying. Now, as far as the propellers go, they include 3 of one type and 3 of another type. Technically, one set is clockwise and one is counterclockwise rotation. It's not important that you know which is the clockwise or counterclockwise, but if you care about that, it's written in really tiny print right there on the propeller. What you do have to pay attention to, and this is really important, is on the propeller, you'll notice one set has a dash right there on the mounting, and there's no dash on this one. And those are different. So it's important you match the one with the dash up to the arm, or the motor on the arm, that has the dash on it, and the no dash to the no dash motor right there. If you get them mixed up, and you can because they mount the same way, the drone, when you try to take off, will flip over on its back and do all kinds of wacky things. So it's really important you match up those propellers to the right motors when you're changing them. My suggestion is when you're changing a propeller, just pull off one propeller at a time, because you normally don't damage multiple propellers unless you're driving full speed into a tree. But pull off one propeller at a time, change that, throw the old propeller out. There's no point in keeping it. All right, so to attach the propellers is really easy. You'll pull off these rubber stoppers, and these are only in there for shipping, so you can discard those. And you'll want to open up the arms first before you attach the propellers. And there is an order in opening up the arms. If you try to open the top arm first, you can do that, but you'll see that it blocks the bottom arm. You can't actually open that bottom arm. So you'll always want to open the bottom arms first, and then you'll want to open the top arms. So open those bottom arms fully, flip it over, always hold it with 2 hands when you're opening the arms, flip it over, and then fully extend the top arms. Now, one suggestion I will give you is never let the arms go. And I'd mentioned this in the original section I did already, that you don't want to let these things flip open on their own. You always want to carry them through the end of travel because there's spring-loaded mechanisms inside. And this thing wants to open on its own, but if you let it fly open on its own, you're going to end up cracking this housing down here. So always carry it all the way through the end of travel. And then set it down on a surface, and you can add the propellers to it. And like I'd mentioned, you have 2 propellers that have the little dashes on them. So you can see in the arms, there's a dash and there's a dash. There's no dash on these 2 arms. And that's no coincidence that they're across from each other, because when this flies, the basics of aerodynamics is you have to have opposing forces on the propellers to keep it stable. So you've got 2 propellers here fighting to keep it stable, and 2 propellers here fighting to keep it stable, as well as these 2 fighting and these 2 fighting. So you've got a balance between those different forces. So to add the propellers, it couldn't be easier, but there are a couple things to keep in mind. You'll want to center this on the shaft and then push down. But before you push down, see how my hand went underneath naturally? You'll want to hold that arm, because the tendency would be to just crank down on it. And again, you're putting pressure on the arm downward. You can crack that housing. So always hold the bottom. And then what I like to do is line it up with the slot like that, push down, and I don't rotate the propeller. I rotate the motor underneath it. See my thumb there sliding that motor? That's what I do, and then I let go, and it's locked in. And you can tell you have it locked in because right here, you'll see that little piece pop up. See that little white piece pop up there? That way I know it's locked in completely. Then I'll spin it to the next one. This one, well, there's no dash, so I've got a no dash propeller. I'll do the same thing. I'll hold it from underneath, spin it, and lock it in place. And I always want to check it to make sure it's fully seated. Move on to the third one. That's a dash. I got a dash propeller. Put it down over the shaft. Again, hold it from underneath. This one's got a foot on it, so it's a little bit better. Push it down, and then spin it in place. Check that it's locked in. And then finally, the fourth one. And I know this is a boring exercise, and you'll do it in like 8 seconds when you finally get the drone, but I want to show you slowly so you understand exactly how to do it, because one thing you want to be aware of, and this should be obvious, the propellers are one of the few things in the drone that are what I call a single point of failure, which means if one of these propellers fail, the drone's coming out of the sky like a brick. So you don't want to have any kind of shenanigans going on with the propellers. You want to make sure they're fully seated and they're not damaged. And that's something else I should mention too. When you get them new, they're going to be fine, but you want to make sure they're not floppy in the setting. You want to make sure that they're not loose in the setting. But as you fly the drone a lot, you're going to wonder, when should I change the propellers? Well, what I do is after every flight, I inspect my propellers. I run my fingers over them to see if there's any nicks or dings or any bug juice on them. I carry a cloth with me that's got a little bit of alcohol, sort of like a cloth you'd use to clean your glasses. And I'll run that over, I'll run that over the propellers to make sure any debris on the surface is removed. And that way I can hang on to the propellers for a period of time. But if you see a nick or a ding or some kind of damage to the propeller, change it. Don't fly with it, because the drone is pretty tolerant of damaged propellers and it'll still continue to fly even if you've got a chunk of the propeller missing. but I guarantee you that's going to cause you problems over time, and you don't want to fool around with the propellers. Another single point of failure is the battery. Now, the battery itself has got a lot of protections built in. It's constantly talking to the controller through the electronics in the drone, so the drone knows how much energy is left in the battery, and the drone can make decisions about when to fly back and land if the battery's getting low. But you want to treat the battery with a lot of care. So when you're charging the battery, make sure you charge it in a moderate temperature. Don't charge it when it's super cold or super hot. Don't store it in a super cold or super hot environment. Make sure you really care for that battery. Don't lay it down on wet ground, because single point of failure here, single point of failure here. So if you want to keep your drone up in the air where it belongs, make sure you take care of the battery and you check your propellers all the time. All right, enough about that. So on the top of the drone, you've got a power button right there, and you've got a couple of LEDs right there that let you know what the charge is on the drone currently. So to tap that once, it'll tell you what the charge level of the batteries is, and right now it's 75%. Each of those dots represent 25%, just like on the controller. Right now I know I've got about a 3/4 full battery. Once it's fully charged, all 4 of those will light up. To turn it on, you'll tap it and hold it. They'll strobe up and turn on. On the bottom of the drone, let's go there next. You'll notice the slot here for the accessory, and I'll slide that in a second. But a couple of other cool things. You've got feet in the front and feet in the back that have a rubber stopper on them, again, to add some cushioning when it lands. You've got 2 sensors right here, and you've got 2 LEDs right here. These are flashlights, they're Cree bulbs. But the sensors are what are called VIO, which is a type of technology that's constantly bouncing a laser off the ground. I've got it upside down, obviously, but bouncing a laser off the ground and measuring how long it takes to come back to the sensor. And those are used for keeping it stable. So if you're flying it indoors, always be careful when you're flying it indoors, because any big drone like this has the potential to do a lot of damage if you lose control of it. And I can tell you from experience, I've shredded quite a few lamps and quite a few different things in the house by flying a drone before I was ready to fly it. But if you do fly it in a house where GPS isn't available, these will keep it stable over that surface. So these can be a little bit scary too if you're flying over water or reflective surfaces. If you get down too low, like under 15 meters, or certainly under 10 meters, they can get confused and you can have all kinds of wacky behavior with the drone. So if you're flying over water, you're flying over snow or ice or any reflective surface, keep it above 15 meters and you'll be fine. These turn on to aid in the landing, so you can use these if you lose sight of the drone in the sky in the dark. You can turn those on and spot your drone. They're also great for landing the drone. And then behind this is where the connector for the accessory lies, so you can pull that rubber stopper off. And to put this in, it only goes in one way. Those are the connections that made up with the internal board. You'll lay it down just like this in this slot. See how it slides? And just gently push it forward and you hear a click. Hear that click? And now it's fully locked in place. It's going to stay there. The minute you slide that in, the remote controller knows you're using the module, and the speaker and the catch and release become active. If you'd like to remove this, just pull up on this pin and slide it back like that and lift it out. But always remember to put that cover back on, because if you're going to fly this thing in any kind of conditions where it's going to be wet, that's open, and you don't want water to get into those contacts, because this unit can be flown in light rain and in snow. It's got a lot of protections built in against that kind of moisture. The one place it's not protected is back here on this particular connector, so always leave that plugged in. All right, let's take a look at the camera next. Now, to get at the camera, there's a tab right here in the top, right there. You'll pull that out and pull down, pull that out and pull down on that grid. So let me slide these. Actually, I'm okay, you can see it. So I'll pull out on this, and once I release it past that top, you're going to pull down on it just like this, and it pulls off, and that's it. Now set that aside. You're going to want to hang on to that, because this unit is definitely something you want to put back on the drone when you're traveling to protect the camera. Now the camera itself is a 3-axis gimbal. I'll flip it over so you can see it. You've got protections, or I should say adjustments in this range. You've got adjustments in this range. And you've got adjustments to a certain extent forward and back. You've got a shocking assembly in there as well to keep it stable. But this camera is going to lock on your target when you're flying, and there's intelligence built into the unit, gyroscopic controls that actually sense the way the drone is moving and will counter that movement with this gimbal to keep that locked dead on your target. So you're going to get a rock solid picture from that camera when you're flying. And the important thing again to remember is that you've got a 1/2-inch sensor which can shoot, again, 4K video and 48 megapixel pictures, so it's a high quality camera. It's going to give you phenomenal results up in the sky. The last thing I wanted to mention was how to remove the battery. You'll notice on the side of the drone there's a button there, there's one on the other side as well. So to pull the battery out, hold the drone firmly, squeeze both of those buttons at the same time, and just lift the battery out. Now you'll have to do that when you're charging it. So anytime you want to charge the battery, those are the connections that actually plug into the charger that comes with the kit. And you'll pop that connector on here, plug it into the wall, and watch these strobe. When they hit 4, that means it's fully charged, you're ready to go. To put it back in the drone, you'll hold the drone or set it down on a surface, match up the connector with this, slide it in like that, and then listen to it click. Hear that click? You want to make sure it's fully seated, and you should know that by looking at the 2 seams. These should be completely smooth. So I always run my finger along there to make sure it's fully seated, because again, single point of failure in the drone, and even if the battery's good, if it's not fully seated, those connections in the front, during flight, because it gets a lot of vibrations, can shake loose, and if you get an interruption to the power, the drone's going to get confused and you could have some issues. So just make sure you've got that fully seated before you take off. And that's pretty much it for the drone. It's pretty simple to fly, and the beautiful part is because of the controls and the electronics and the engineering that's built into it, the minute you put it up, it's going to stay right where you left it. So if you ever get into a situation where you're a little bit sketchy about where you're flying, just take your thumbs off the joystick, the drone will stay there and wait for your next command. I hope that closer look was helpful. And again, I'm going to spend some time over the next couple of days flying this guy to sort of get a feel for how it handles up in the air. I'll take a lot of video footage and some pictures. I'll put a little montage together so you can see what the video quality looks like up in the air. Again, the features that are built into this really excite me because I've got a drone here that I think anybody can fly right out of the box. I think it gives you everything you need in a camera drone. And I love the fact that competition is out there in that marketplace saying to the other companies that are out there, hey, you're not the only one selling a product like this. We can build a very compelling solution that competes with your products as well and give consumers a choice, because when you have choice in a market, it drives everybody to be better. It drives prices down, it drives engineering up. So that's a really good thing for all of us. So, kudos to Fimi for coming out with a product like this. And again, I can't wait to get it up in the air. So stay tuned for those other clips. And for now, thanks again for watching. And until next time, happy flying.